Hello, all, and welcome back to another episode of Movies and Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today is actually not just any normal episode of Movies and Us. We are here with a milestone. Sarah, what milestone have we hit today?
Our 300th episode!
Woo! And the crowd goes wild.
Yeah, can we get some air horns and crowd noise and stuff going?
I shall insert an editing. It'll be great.
Perfect.
Woo-hoo!
Thank you.
Yeah. Man, we have made it to another milestone episode. Can you believe it? 300.
No. It's wild.
It's crazy. It's crazy. We are here with a celebratory episode. We're going to chit-chat a little bit about this milestone, some of our reflections upon it on our journey, all of that goodness. And then we've got a fun way to celebrate today, perfect for December. And we'll reveal that in a hot sec. But first, I'm curious to hear just your thoughts, reflections on this 300th milestone. What have you been thinking about lately?
Jen, for over 300 hours, we have talked into microphones about movies and other various things.
Mm-hmm.
That is wild to me.
Yeah.
I feel like every time we have a milestone episode, we have the same conversation, but every time I'm just amazed that we've made it this far. I'm amazed that people listen to this podcast.
Uh-huh.
And, we years ago were just like, yeah, we enjoy talking about movies. Let's create a podcast. And now 300 episodes later, we still enjoy it. We still love it. And we've gotten to meet some really, really cool people along the way too, and have really good conversations with others about movies. And I think that is just a reinforcement of our whole idea of movies and us, and the way that movies can help us connect to each other and the world around us. And we get to see that play out week after week after week for 300 episodes. And it's just incredible to me.
Yeah. It really is amazing how much that heart of this mission, the thing that we were originally captivated by when we first started this whole thing, has still remained just the center of it all. I was talking to Patrick the other day actually around how we started and everything, and he was like, yeah, how did you guys even think about this? And I was like, honestly, Sarah and I would send voice memos back and forth to each other that were 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long, just gushing about movies together over text. And we were just like, let's just hit record one day and start this journey. And this 300th milestone, I feel like really snuck up on me. I don't know about you, but I'm like, also when numbers get bigger, I just can't really wrap my head around them the same way that I can when they're smaller. So 300 feels so wild to me. It's been 5.5 years of doing this, nearly 5.5 years, maybe 5 in a couple of months. But just that amount of time is insane to me. And you're right, 300 hours plus. I think over the past couple of days, one of the things that has really been the primary thought running around in my brain is we still have so much that we talk about and are able to dive into, and it's still so fun. There's still so much, we haven't run out of things at all. And I think that's also the power of art and conversation with people together, is there's always new ideas, perspectives, emotions, characters, people to chew on together, that how could you ever get bored? It is still so captivating.
Yeah, that's the beauty of movies, is they really are these magical things that transport us to other worlds and into other experiences and stuff. And it always is just so fun to not just experience the movie, but then take it a level deeper and unpack it and talk about all of the things that stood out to us. And I don't know, that never gets old, which is wild.
It never does. It never does. The and us part of that is so captivating, so exciting. I would never have known that you had a deep love for big furry pigs had we not talked about movies. Like,
Mhm.
maybe it would have
Yeah.
come up in a conversation here or there. We found
Unlikely.
ourselves at a petting zoo, perhaps. I don't know, but like, I would not have known this deep part of you?
Mhm.
And it's the same thing with
Yep.
other people too. Those random quirks, those random things that they are captivated by or just get excited about or didn't resonate with them. Like, it's just such an avenue to bring those things to the surface and then get to learn about each other a little bit more.
Mhm. And we've gotten to learn about your deep love for mobster movies. Never would have
Yes.
known. If you gave me a million guesses, never would have gotten there. But because we talk about movies, here we are.
Yep. Yep. Just a warped sense of empathy for like really bad criminals. It's great. It's
It's
good.
so
It's
good.
good. Some furry pigs and some mobsters. Here we are.
Yeah, we got the full
5 years later.
spectrum.
Oh, man. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, and I think the other thing that have been reflecting on is that, people talk about this oftentimes with books and with reading too, but I found the same case with movies is that it has just unlocked and opened our perspectives to so many new ideas, topics, worlds, like the amount of like um types of people groups and stories in history and stories of the present times that um like it's made life so much more rich as well and perspectives so much more rich, I think, to wrestle with, unpack, and really dive fully into some of these topical areas that I'm like, I don't know what I would have thought about or stumbled upon something like that. We recently reviewed Killers of the Flower Moon, which I think is such a perfect example of wrestling with these parts of our history and these people groups that I think is just so important and significant instead of staying within kind of echo chambers or the circles that you would habit in your day to day life. Like, movies has been such a great way to just bring exposure to all of these new areas and ideas that we wouldn't normally encounter in the same ways. So that's been really neat as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think a big journey that I've been on is seeing movies not just as entertainment, but
Hmm.
as something to be learned from, and really viewing things more critically, and asking more questions about the
Yeah.
movies that we review, and seeing if we can dive even deeper than what's just on the surface. Like, yes, movies are entertaining and that's great. There's always a place for entertainment, but we can also learn so much from them, especially if you have, you know, people of color sharing their stories, or like indigenous
Hmm.
stories, women's stories, like all of these other stories that we don't always get to experience. When people are able to tell their stories their way, it is just a joy to be able to listen and learn from them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true. And we've gotten to experience a lot of those diverse stories and be more intentional too about choosing to bring those to the pod
Hmm.
and talk about those and kind of thinking more critically about some of those choices have been really great as well. Indie stories too, like some of those that don't make the big
Yes.
funding cuts, like all of that has been really meaningful as well.
And I think that's also a fun part of this too, is when we're content planning, we get to choose not only
Mm,
what we want to see, but we also get to choose the movies that we want to bring to people,
mm-hmm.
and maybe raise a little bit of awareness about that isn't getting a big marketing budget like some of the other big blockbusters. So that's always fun to be able to talk about a movie that maybe other people haven't heard of, and give it some exposure, and hopefully get some people to see it and support some indie filmmakers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. Yeah. It's so true. And I loved a comment that you made earlier around the people that we've gotten to have and on the
Yes.
pod and connect with. Like, I think something that has been exciting from maybe our 200th milestone to our 300th is just getting to meet people through the interwebs or through our networks and our communities that also share this love for movies and get to just gush about it together and dive into it together. Like, we've been able to have really fun conversations with people that also love this stuff too and love to also dissect movies. And that's been so neat. just, the shared connection point is really, really fun. So that's been really exciting, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. Who knew that there were so many film nerds out there just
I
ready
love
to
it.
hop on a mic and talk about movies deeply? It's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of sharing in each other's work too, of like, "Oh my gosh, I listened to this episode of yours, and it was such an interesting perspective that you had on X, Y, and Z," and them listening to ours. It still warms my little heart so much when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you to everybody who
Mhm.
listens, who follows us on socials and comments on everything. Thank you to
Yeah.
everybody who's come on. It's just been so great to be
Yeah.
able to like build this little community and going into 2024, we're going to continue to find ways to build that community and have more people on and figure out ways to have more of these conversations about movies and each other and have
Yeah.
more of this goodness.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. Yes. We are we've come a long way, and we've got so much more adventuring to do. I'm so
Mhm.
excited as
Yeah.
we look ahead. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do a celebratory moment for our 300th milestone by having some fun. We have picked a movie today that is a whole lot of fun. Sarah, what movie are we reviewing today?
We are reviewing the Christmas classic Die Hard.
The warm, fuzzy, cozy movie that you love to watch by the fire with your family.
Yeah, it's great.
Watching people get, with guns a-blazing. Yep.
Nothing
We're
will
gonna be
get
reviewing
you
Die
in
Hard.
the Christmas cheer like Die Hard. There's just something special about it.
Perfect for the beginning of the holiday season here. We are at the start of December, although I don't know. People are putting their Christmas trees up like beginning of November, I saw. So some people are already well on their way on the Christmas cheer. But here we are in December. This is the perfect movie for the season. A lot of fun. We're just going to have fun today for our 300th milestone. Okay. Well, in our usual tradition, Sarah, the IMDb summary for Die Hard.
A New York City police officer tries to save his estranged wife and several others taken hostage by terrorists during a Christmas party at the Nakatomi Plaza in Los Angeles.
All right. And in Movies in Us tradition, let's start off with our one sentence summaries for Die Hard. Sarah, what was yours?
Mine is an indictment of all Christmas work parties.
Oh, yes. So good. When you get like, what, 30 people? The top of a
Yeah,
building?
yeah. Also, like
It's a very beautiful building.
to have your Christmas work party on Christmas Eve, that's
Yeah.
just a crappy thing to do. Like, can't we do better? Let the people have Christmas Eve off. Come on,
True.
folks.
Very true. Yes. Okay, my one sentence summary is no one does Christmas better than cozy German Christmas markets and some zingy German extremists.
I love it. It's so good.
Okay. Let's start off with why don't we just include a spoiler alert? Die Hard came out in what, 1988? If you haven't seen it yet, again, Sarah's mentioned it's a Christmas classic. So we recommend watching it if you haven't yet. This is one we don't want to spoil. And it'll be included in your Christmas traditions. But for today, we are going to dive straight in and just have full reign over all of the plot points of Die Hard. So, Sarah, tell me maybe the first time that you watched Die Hard, if you can even remember, and then what this experience was like this time around.
I can't remember the first time I watched Die Hard. It was many moons ago. I mean, I don't know. It was probably 20 years ago now. Like it
Yeah.
was a long time ago. And it's been a while since I watched Die Hard. So I have long since said that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, mostly just to be snarky and silly. But upon rewatching it, I'm like, no, I legitimately think that this can qualify as a Christmas movie because it's so jolly and jovial, even though people are being shot at and there are explosions and stuff. Like, it's still a very festive movie. Uh, so I was surprised at how much Christmas is actually in Die Hard. But this movie is a great time. It's so much fun. It's silly and funny, and it still holds up. There are certain action moments that I was genuinely like, "Oh my gosh, this is like legit like tense." And I'm a little worried for John McClane even though I know he survives just fine. So it's just really cool to watch a movie that's this old and it still holds up as well as it does. And I had a blast watching it. Die Hard is great.
It's so fun. I too, uh in the first 10 minutes of this movie, I was like, the amount of Christmas cheer in this is
Yes.
definitely a Christmas movie. I don't know
Oh,
what people are talking about when they say that it's not. Um, the amount of people that mention Christmas, the amount of Christmas songs that are included, the Christmas decor, the shots, it's all Christmas themed throughout the entire movie. And the movie ends with "Let It Snow." Like, hello,
mhm. Yeah.
Christmas movie all through and through. Um, you're right, and I remember this movie. I mean, obviously, it's very gritty in a lot of ways, but there's like a incredibly endearing earnestness about it too, and the characters and the way they relate to each other that I think is just like oddly, it's a little bit more jolly, like you mentioned, than I remember it being, and I was surprised by that the second time around. Um, Even a lot of the interactions between Hans and John McClane, like there's oddly this like warmth between them. It's not like a um, David Fincher, like deeply gritty thriller, right? Like there's something that's really sweet and earnest about the whole thing. And I think also like the way that it's positioned as like a cat and mouse and John McClane's like lightheartedness really helps that as well. So I don't know. I mean, I think it puts you in a jolly old mood after finishing this as our hero saves the day. But yeah, I hadn't seen this. I think, or if I have, I hadn't seen it for a long time until a couple of years ago. And then I think I remember making a point in December to be like, okay, I've heard much about this. I must check this off my list. And I think it made it into my top 10 list. One of the past couple of years that we've done our top 10 lists. So all in all, this is a good time. I was also from a technical perspective, just again captivated by the cinematography, the dialogue, the score. Like it all is working together very well to do its thing. So, from a technical perspective, it also just does a really good job. So that was really rewarding to see.
Yeah, yeah. I was really impressed at the cinematography, and the camera is constantly moving in this, it feels like. And you're constantly like panning this way, zooming in on this thing. Like you are constantly in motion. And that didn't bother me, but in fact, it highlighted everything. So there's this tense moment, and then the camera pans in a certain direction to make it even more tense. And I was just so impressed because I don't know, sometimes when your camera is constantly moving like that, it feels a little much and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I just need you to be still for a little while." But I feel like they did a really, really good job not being too heavy-handed with that, but making sure that every movement was intentional to get us to focus on a certain thing or to highlight what we should be feeling or whatever the case may be. And I really appreciated that this go around.
Hmm. The pacing in this movie is really well done from an action movie standpoint. Like it knows when to dwell, it knows when to slow down, it knows when to create tension, and then it knows when to explode. And I thought all of that was like I think we've been on we've watched a bunch of action movies this past year and it just can feel a little one-toned, and this felt like a piece of music. Like it knows how to create contrast. It knows when to explode and erupt in like a fitful of action and emotion and all this kind of stuff. And it knows when to give our characters a moment of rest, have them scheme, have them plot, and then explode again. And all of that I just thought was really well done. And I wish We made action movies like this still.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that I really liked about this was how information is shared with the audience. And so there are certain things that like you have questions about, and then the movie will answer it later. And so again, like for the filmmaker to know what we as the audience are asking and then knows how to pay that off later. So one of the questions that I had was Hans is so methodical. I freaking loved
I
him.
love
You're probably not supposed to root for this dude, but in a way I was kind of like, "You know what? I got to give it to you. You thought your plan out and I respect that." So he's so methodical and detail oriented and he has this whole plan for breaking into the safe to steal these bearer bonds. And the whole time I'm just going, well, why would you do that when people are there? Like why are you doing this like a terrorist attack when it's really just a heist? And then of course there's the reveal at the very end that he had to do that so that the FBI gets called in so that they black out everything so they can get into the safe. And so I just loved how this movie relays information like that. You learn something and a character's actions are incongruous with who you think they are, and then later you see, oh no, there's another layer to them that I had missed before. And I thought that that was just brilliant.
Mm. Yeah, those, like, twists and turns that the movie's able to get us on board for, and they do that quite a bit with, like, the characters, like, trying to outsmart each other too. I mean, this really is a game of cat and mouse in the best
Hmm.
way. We've got a very effective cat, and we've got a very effective mouse, and they're both good at what they do, and so it makes it really, like, deliciously fun. I also thought that, like, this is a process movie, and we love process movies. Uh, and we get to see every well-laid plan, what they were intending, and then what actually happens, and all of the details that go into it, and I loved that piece of it. Um, Something that I think a lot of action movies don't do as well today is one, they just focus on the big explosive action without the kind of planfulness of it. But then two, we don't have a good sense of space and location. So a lot of big explosive things are happening, but we don't actually know how these places and people are in relation to each other. It's a lot of like quick cutting and whatnot. And I really noticed this time around with this movie we get a clear mapping of, say, the floor that they're on and the different rooms and where each of them are. And so it creates a lot of tension to be like, oh my gosh, you're shooting in that direction. How is John McClane to get out of it? And we see him maneuver out of it. But there's always a clear sense of distance, time, and space with all of these people in relation to each other. And just that grounding is thrilling, like, and we don't do that grounding as much now with the action that we have. Or it's a lot harder too because there's a lot of choreography and details that need to go into planning for that. But when it's done well, it really works. Really works. Even in the elevator shaft, there's a clear sense of space and time and how far he needs to jump and where the bad guys are at, and um, that creates tension. The grounding of it all actually creates the tension.
Absolutely. And then when you see like the bad guys going in a direction that you maybe don't expect them to, then it's like, oh wait, there's something else going on. So like all this stuff with the roof,
Yeah.
it's like, oh wait, there's more danger because we've moved out of these floors that we've been battling on. So I just that's so fun how the building itself is almost a character and you know what's going on in the building, what's going on the different floors, like the sense of place in this movie is so important. And like you said, it builds tension through the whole thing.
Yep. Yep. And I think this movie proves that we don't need a giant car chase through Rome. Like, we don't need our action hero to, like, be dangling from a helicopter next to the side of a mountain to create thrill. Like, they are stuck actually, because they are stuck within this building,
Hmm.
and they have to figure out how to maneuver and plot and scheme with each other with the things that they have. Like, the constraints actually make it more fun I think this movie proves that it can be done really, really well. And they're actually confined, and therefore the tension is how are they going to find each other or outmaneuver each other in such a confined space and use what they have available to them. Things like the glass of an office becomes like a a device and tactic that they can use to try and like take their person out. Like that. Those details are really fun, but it is more planful. It's a lot more planful.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love that this movie manages to balance all of these different things. Like,
Mhm.
it is cat and mouse, and it's very intentional and strategic, and there's a lot of planning going on, and you still have these explosive, actiony moments, and it's funny, all together, all in
Yes.
one, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like we don't always expect a lot from action movies these days, but I feel like Die Hard proves that you can be both an action movie and a good movie,
Yes.
and have something to
Yes.
say as well. Like, wow,
Mhm.
good job, Die Hard. You did a lot of work. I
Yep.
would like more movies like Die Hard, please.
Yes, please. Yes. And okay, one thing that I think some action movies just kind of, you know, punt to the wayside is the dialogue. They're like all in on we're gonna have some really great set pieces and whatnot, but the
Mhm.
dialogue is often just it's so bad sometimes. And the one-liners, the zingers that are delivered in Die Hard, I think make for this to be really, really fun. And it's the zingers delivered within a moment, within a big action moment. And all of that I just ate up. Like there's so many good one-liners in this movie, and the quippy dialogue just adds so much flair to an already fun movie.
Yeah, and it makes it so funny too, which is sometimes I feel like action movies they'll have a really tense moment and they'll try and break it up with some humor and it doesn't always work out well.
Mhm.
But this movie, it totally works. You can tell that John McClane, this is his like coping mechanism
Yeah.
almost, going through this terrible ordeal that he didn't want to be in. And so it's this sarcasm and this wit is part of his character and it's how he's getting through this. And it felt so natural and so real. And I think that it also helps that Bruce Willis was primarily known as a comedic actor before this.
Mhm.
And so then that just lends itself to him having great timing, great delivery of all of these really sarcastic, quippy lines.
Yeah. And the movie does a great job of layering too, like,
Hmm.
both with both with some of the emotional beats, like, um, Holly's using her last name, using McLean by the end of the movie, and do we see that at the beginning of the movie, she's using her maiden name, right? Like, that setup and payoff to bookend this. But even down to little pieces of dialogue, like the "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker," right? Like,
Yeah.
we see that setup, and we see Hans kinda serve it back to him in this really fun way, in the big climactic ending sequence as well. And so, like, the movie also is giving us a setup and payoffs and rewarding us, and layering through even the quippy dialogue, which I think is just so well designed, so intentional. And again, that attention to detail is really what makes this movie shine.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think having your protagonist and your antagonist both being so intelligent too,
Mm,
and they have different strengths, different skill sets, different types of intelligences, but you can tell that they are both very smart and they are both good at what they do. And I think that helps make it more fun that they're kind of evenly matched even if they do things very differently from each other. And I think that helps make it more fun. And I almost feel like Hans has some level of respect for John McClane, even though he's really annoyed that he's foiling all of his good plans. And so I liked that, I don't know, that pairing of these two. And that helps make it very interesting as well. The fact that they're evenly matched creates more tension and creates more excitement throughout the movie.
Yeah, no, that's so true. That's so true. And I think it also like proves another Die Hard then again proves another point, which is that actually like scaling this back and scoping actually helps you really develop your characters a little more because a lot of action movies now again, they're like world domination, like some mysterious
Mhm.
ruler and villain
Mhm.
somewhere in a lair is wanting to dominate the entire world through some usually some like science gone wrong, AI gone wrong thing, right? Like, and so we end up not really meeting that villain character till like the last 30 minutes of the movie. And we fight basically like the small bosses along the way to get to the big
Mhm.
boss. So you kind of don't really even know who your foe is. And we're, I guess, with the protagonist discovering who that is. And it's so big and the stakes are so high because like Earth is gonna get zapped by some satellite in space, right? Like it's so large. And cat and mouse is just really fun. I mean, we saw that with the Terminator 2, which we reviewed recently as well. But these small scope stories ironically work really, really well if they're done well. But our tendency now, the trend is let's make this world domination and the earth is going to get destroyed and all of humanity is going to be wiped out because stakes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that weird thing where when a number gets too big,
Like
it loses
300.
all meaning. Like 300, it's way too big of a number. What is
Mhm.
300? We don't know. But so it's almost like when you go too macro, the scale becomes irrelevant and then you have no stakes. But it's
Yep.
in this case, it's 30 people at a Christmas party in this building and that's it.
Yep.
Like the stakes are clear, they're concrete, they're tangible. We understand what is going to happen if John McClane doesn't succeed.
Yep.
Whereas world domination, obviously, we would like the world to continue to work, but it's a little too big sometimes. And if it's
Mhm.
not grounded in something tangible, then it loses all meaning.
Yep. Yep. That's so true. And we also have time to like find Hans compelling as
Hmm.
well,
Yeah.
and, like, kind of, in your case, like, root for him too. You know, like, there's charisma because there's time that we have with him. Whereas some of these big bad villains of the action movies of today, unless they're played by Mads Mikkelsen, who is, like, deliciously great at playing bad villains and immediate charisma oozing from the screen, it's hard for us to, like, empathize and get on board with what their story is and why they're here. And it's usually something because they've been snuffed in their childhood and whatnot, right? Like in this case, the man, Hans just wants some money and he's going to pull off a really well designed heist. And you kind of can see that he's incredibly sharp and wise in the way that he's planned that out as well. And that we can also wrap our head around, get on board with, and see now this like battle play out between these two very smart men. And we love it. We eat it up.
Yeah, and I love that neither of them are caricatures. Like
Yeah.
it would have been really easy to make Hans into this like evil villain and it just becomes comical. Same thing, like John McClane could have been this like ridiculous action hero and that would have also been to this movie's detriment. But both of these guys are they seem like real people and they seem very grounded and it's just a blast to watch them kind of go at each other because they aren't too over the top.
Yeah, very true. And I mean, Alan Rickman does an incredible job
Oh,
of like
yes.
towing that line because he's got some scenes. I mean, his whole crew is like they're extra in a lot of ways,
Yes.
but it's the right amount. You know, they haven't teetered into like ridiculousness where you kind of can't take them seriously enough. It's the right amount of hair flowing, blonde, icy blonde hair flowing in the breeze as they're like whipping around their giant guns. It's the right amount of there's flair, there's clearly like a zeitgeist that they've like bought into together and they're bonded by, but it's not too much. It's hard to do. Like, Alan Rickman's
Hmm.
character easily could have been kind of ridiculous.
Right? Yeah. Somehow he
He
is
does it so good.
still yeah. Ugh, Alan Rickman was just such a great actor.
Yep.
What a gem. I'm so glad that he did Die Hard.
Yes, he nails it.
Yeah,
His voice, speaking
perfect.
into that like walkie-talkie, just oh, chills. He's barking out orders, chills.
Mhm. Yeah. I was just like, "Alan Rickman, please keep talking. Like, just keep doing your thing. You're doing great, buddy."
Yeah, I'm like, if I'm one of your minions, like I too will listen to whatever you say.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Um one of the things that I think we talked about some of the technical aspect of this movie, the cinematography, things like that. But I also found the editing really compelling in this movie. Um, this movie's so good at doing what film does well, which is juxtaposing a couple of shots together, leaving a lot out, and trusting that like we as the viewers can fill in the gaps. And this movie does this so many different times. Um, the one that really stood out to me, where I was like, this is the perfect example of like what film does well, is there's a shot of the exit sign, which we know is from the point of view of John. There's a shot of his bare feet. There's a shot of the floor of glass. And then immediate next scene after is like his feet, him dragging himself with his bloody feet. And I feel like we didn't need to see anything in between those two. You know, like we got it. 4 shots, highly efficient, and we know exactly what happened. It actually it rewards and creates that excitement of like, oh my gosh, he's gonna have to do it. He's gonna have to run across this like sea of broken glass. And we don't actually ever see him do it either. And so the efficiency that this movie has in creating excitement, but not necessarily having to show us the entire thing, I thought was so good. So, so good. And it was like so exciting to see every time that the film employed a moment like that of like a series of shots together, a lot missing in between, and we can fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and that bloody feet moment is still so effective because you get to see him dealing with the after effects of it. And pulling that glass shard out of his foot is so cringy. Like, oh my gosh, it's hard to watch. But
Yeah.
that's all that you needed to know. You didn't need to watch him walk through all of that glass, but instead you
Mm-hmm.
just need to know where he is now and having
Mm-hmm.
to deal with his bloodied foot. I thought that that was just so smart. I also think there are moments when you see him doing something, especially in the beginning, and you see his wife beater changing colors throughout,
Yes.
and it's like, oh, he's been through some stuff while we were checking in on the hostages or whatever. And so I
Uh-huh.
loved that in the beginning is almost this marker of all of the horrible things he's been through, is his shirt is just getting dirtier and dirtier.
Yes. By the end, when he's hanging off the side of this building, I was like,
Oh
this
my
man
gosh.
should have been dead like hours
Yes.
ago. Like
Yes.
how he has cheated death, truly. So good.
Yeah, amazing. And I love that he didn't seek this out. I had forgotten that part of it. I had remembered him
Mm,
being more of like an action hero. Um but he is very reluctant, and for a good chunk in the beginning, he is not trying to fight this battle himself. He is like, "Oh my gosh, how do I get outside help? How do I get the cops here? How do I get somebody to help solve this problem, because I am not the solution?" And then eventually he's like, "Ah, crap, I have to be the solution." And then he does his whole thing. But I loved that sense of self-awareness and maybe even a little bit of humility that we don't always get to see in these action movies. It was
mm,
lovely.
that's so good. That's so good. The reluctant hero. That is highly competent. We love. That's one of the things that in the scene with Harry Ellis when he's trying to negotiate terribly with Hans. Um, I was like, John and Ellis are really foils for each other. The type of the protagonist that we often will see in American movies, right? John is the highly competent, but also can be pompous and's got like a flair and got a mouth on him, right? But we love him because he's so good at what he does. Ellis is pompous, but incredibly incompetent, and he's played to be a fool. And they are truly foils of each other. He's the warped version of the things that we love about John. John, though he has that confidence and that flair, he also can deliver. And I think immediately we're just like on board. And we kind of love that like they have a whole bit about this in the movie around like the cowboy character who's like confident, independent, goes in his own and pompous in his own way. We love that. We eat that up as Americans. We're like serve it on a silver platter for us. If you look at like our big action heroes, they often have a lot of those same traits.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and I loved that in this one, he has all of those, but he doesn't go in guns blazing. He he takes his time
Hmm.
and eventually gets there, but like you said, it's the reluctant hero, and I don't know, to me, those movies are so fun because there's like he seems more grounded and more human that if he had been like super duper cop, I can
Let's
solve this
go.
problem, then it's like, okay, well now you're a superhero. And that's not as fun as the
Mm.
regular Joe in a terrible situation having to figure his way out.
And this movie does something that is the antithesis to your pet peeve, which is our hero gets hurt. Wow,
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
Like, let's celebrate that. Like your point around him having to pull the shards of glass out of his feet. Like he visibly is hurt, and also you see throughout the movie, like he is progressively getting just tired and
Mhm.
bloodied
Yeah.
and has to find new guns, has to refill his guns. Like something that we celebrated so much in John Wick, even though John Wick has like layers of plot armor, but
Yes.
he has to refill his gun. Like that moment of pause that makes you vulnerable because your enemy's shooting at you. We see that they have to the logistics of actual fighting versus just like an infinite amount of bullets coming out of your magical gun. It's a little less compelling. So I think that was also really good. We're genuinely concerned. Like, will he make it out alive? Obviously, yes, but struggling along the way too.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's those moments when he's hurt that it's like, "Oh my gosh, he's a real person. He can be hurt." He's not a superhero. This is great. It raises the stakes for everything.
Yep. Yep. So good. So good. Other things that we wanted to mention with this movie.
One thing that I really appreciated upon this watch is like this is such a macho movie, and yet John isn't this like super macho guy. Like the whole character journey that John goes on is coming to respect his wife and her career. And so I love that he's this macho dude who's like shooting up bad guys and blowing up a building, but his takeaway is I was a jerk and I need to apologize to my wife because I didn't respect her in her career. And I was like, this is amazing. Yes. This is a great moral. This is a great takeaway for this character. I loved seeing his character growth.
Mm, yeah. It even does the emotional gut punch, one too, at the end there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really is the thing that frames this movie. That's why he's here to begin with, is his desire to reconcile. And he has to go through hell to get to the point of reconciliation, but he eventually does get there. Yeah. It's so true.
He does get there. Good job, buddy. You exploded a building, you took out a bunch of terrorists, and you learned how to apologize. That's
And
that's a good day.
And we end on this like warm fuzzy. This is why it's a Christmas movie. This warm
Mhm.
fuzzy shot
Yes.
of them in Argyle's cab together. "Let It Snow" is crooning over the speakers.
Mhm.
Argyle says, "If this is your idea of Christmas, gotta be there for New Year's." Like it's got the jolly old Christmas spirit in there. It's very good.
I think that's what's so amazing to me about this movie is that there's so much Christmas in it. It's not
Yeah.
just that this is happening at a Christmas Eve work party. but it's truly there's so much Christmas cheer and the Christmas spirit just woven all throughout, especially at the beginning and the end. And what an audacious choice for an action movie.
Yeah, this is really about family.
Yeah, absolutely. Spending time with the people who are most important to you. And John's just
Yeah,
trying to do that.
yeah. And sometimes it can feel like going through battle to get to that point where you're ready to reconcile. But it is worth it in the end, is the message of this movie. You might have to fight
Amazing.
some German extremists
Mhm.
to get to your family reconciliation, but
Yeah,
it is worth it in time for Christmas.
absolutely.
That is beautiful.
That's a great Christmas moral.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
good.
Just the thing you need on Christmas night. Christmas Eve night, go into bed with images of, like, Tony's hair flopping through the breeze as he, like, comes for you on the roof. A
Mhm.
lovely little image.
Yeah, absolutely. That will make for a great Christmas.
All
Honestly,
is
like, if
calm, all is bright.
I mean, all is calm now. You won't be able
Yes.
to go to work on Monday, so that's also pretty cool. So, get an extended Christmas break.
Yep. Yeah.
Gotta love it.
I mean, in it tangentially related, but slightly along the same vein as I think it was just heartwarming to see how much warmth there is between, like, all of the characters in this movie, like, even between the policemen and the 911 services and the FBI, like, there clearly is, like, obviously, like, hierarchical, like, political dynamics and whatnot, but there isn't that, like, cynicism that I think we often see in movies now. There's, like, a, good-naturedness about it all that I found I didn't remember and I found kinda surprising, and this is, like, such a, late '80s movie in that way, but, um, the trust, for example, that Powell immediately has with John, and even when, um, Powell is kind of, like, not acknowledged in, him advocating for what's actually happening, there isn't this, like, deep set corruption and cynicism that I think we often see portrayed in movies about, like, people in positions of power and our law enforcement. Like, um, a goodness in all of the characters, even the ones that are kind of assholes, that I thought was so distinctive and different from the movies that we get today, that it was just nice to dwell on that for a hot second. I mean, the reality of it is in our world today, it's like maybe it's very different, and I think the movies that we watch today tend to be a little bit more cynical, but there was, like, just a good-naturedness that I found surprising and oddly heartwarming in this movie that we don't see often now.
Well, and I also appreciated that Al was so competent, and he's the like low man on the totem pole, and
Yeah.
everybody above him is significantly less competent than he is, and they are misreading the situation. That Al is like, hey, I can clearly see what's going on, but you're not listening to me. And I was like, that is such, I don't know, that just resonates if you've ever worked in
In
like a
corporate.
hierarchical structure
Oh,
and
yeah.
your boss is like semi competent or incompetent, and then their boss is even more incompetent, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I see the solutions. I know what we need to do. I am reading this correctly. Why won't you listen to me? And so it's just this like empathy for Al of like, oh yeah, I feel like we've all been there before where you're
Oh,
like,
for
okay,
sure.
I know what needs to be done, but you're not listening to me. So I'm just going to let it happen. And I'm just going to sit here and be right. And I was like, you go, Al. He's a real one.
There's a specific scene where, Hans and crew are shooting at the lights, and Al obviously understands that, like, 2 steps ahead of the rest of the crew, and he's like the rest of the group's like, "What are they doing? Why are they shooting at us? They're missing." And Al's like, "They're shooting at the lights." And about, like, 2 seconds later, it dawns
Hmm.
on them, and I think one of his superiors are like, "They're going after the lights," and it's like, "Yes, he just said that about 30 seconds earlier, but you just weren't listening." And how many times does that happen in meetings in corporate?
Mhm. Hello.
Yep.
Yep. So Al is also a hero who saves
Yeah.
Christmas against incompetent higher ups. So
Yes.
way to go, Al. Way to
And he
save
gets his
Christmas.
little redemptive moment where
Yeah.
his confidence is restored on his instincts.
Amazing. It is a
Ah.
Christmas miracle. Wow. Amazing.
Ah. Yeah. Yeah. So good. Uh anything else that we wanted to mention?
Okay, a couple of little things.
Okay, I'm ready.
Um in the meeting with Ellis when he's trying to like negotiate or whatever, one of the Germans hands him a can of Coca-Cola
Yep.
and the like camera kind of lingers on it and I was like, "Why
Oh.
why is that?" And it's probably because he asked them for some Coke and they brought him a soda instead of drugs. And I just thought that that was really funny to include that in there.
I didn't even notice that little bit. I remember seeing the Coke, like, looking very, very bubbly, very juicy.
Mhm.
But yeah, I didn't put that together. Cause
Yeah.
because again, set up payoff, he was doing Coke earlier
Yeah.
at the opening sequence.
Yeah, I thought that that was just so funny. I was like, "Okay, it's good product placement, yes, but also it works for the character." Brilliant.
Yeah, and some winking humor with the audience too.
Yes.
So good.
And then I spotted a pinky ring in this movie.
On Hans,
No, surprisingly, no.
on Tony,
No.
on Ellis,
No.
on Takagi,
No.
on John. Oh my
No.
okay. None of his crew member, none of Hans's minions,
Mm-mm.
none of the Oompa Loompas.
Nope. None of the Oompa Loompas. Not that I saw, but I also wasn't paying super a lot of attention to the Oompa Loompas, so I may have
I was
missed one.
distracted by their hair, to be honest.
There's a lot of hair.
It's so majestic.
It's
Like if
a
I'm gonna
lot.
be a villain coming in with a big heist, like I too want my hair flowing in the breeze as I like storm through this building that I'm gonna, you know, take over.
Honestly, it
It's
might
very
be a
important.
good tactic because they can remember, they would be so distracted by your flowing locks that they forget to look at your face. So, like, there would be no eyewitnesses who could nab you because
Mm,
they'd be so amazed by the hair.
yes, so good, so good. It's a shiny thing for them to get distracted by.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is good. I mean, human
Brilliant.
beings we're all the same. We're distracted by shiny things.
It's
We use
very
your
true.
human nature against you. You too
Yes.
want these flowing golden locks.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, so who has the pinky ring?
Dwayne T. Robinson,
Who
the
the whole heck is that?
the incompetent cop. So Al's direct like
Ah,
superior had a pinky
okay.
ring,
This is a very good data point.
right? I was
Yeah.
impressed. And it fit for that
Incompetence,
character too.
evil,
Yeah.
same category in our pinky ring theory
Yes.
because they all just suck. Yes,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
very good.
He was a jerk too. So I was like this fits that you would be a pinky ring wearer.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, I love it. I love it. Any other things in your basket of fun things?
Okay, I do have a question. At the end of the movie, they've all made it out of the building. It's great. Let It Snow is playing. Fantastic. Heartwarming. There's a bunch of white and green pieces of paper floating around the air. There's so much paper. And I could not understand why it was raining white and green paper. Some of them had hole punches in it, some of them not. And they were all blank. And I did not understand what in the world was going on.
It's like the end of the concert where like they blow the confetti cannons and
Yes.
we're all just like, "Whoa, festive." Yeah.
Yeah. But in this case, it's just sheets of printer paper.
Printer paper, yes. I think because they've, you know, blown up an entire floor and the windows are open and the wind, I don't know, the
Mm, I
circulation is
see.
just making sure this is like truly like, the cherry on top for this Christmas movie. Like, we can't make it
Yes.
snow,
Mhm.
but we can make it rain. We can make it snow paper because
Okay.
corporate America.
Yes. Okay, that was what I was wondering, if they were trying to make a snowing in Los Angeles, this is magical situation, and in an office you would have a lot of printer paper. Uh but it was a lot and I was very distracted.
It was a lot. Well, there's this shot of John hanging out of the building,
Mhm.
and the papers are flying around, and
Yes.
I just remember thinking, like, "Wow, that does make it look a lot more epic," you know?
Yeah.
Like, "Ooh, the paper will gently fall to the ground, but this guy, if he falls, he's not going to." Like, it just makes it look so dramatic. So, then they reframed it to be a magical little moment.
Ah,
Mm,
okay.
very
Yes.
good.
Yeah, we go from tension to magic.
It's a Christmas
Amazing.
miracle.
Wow, more Christmas miracles. There are so many.
Uh, yeah, the Let It Snow soundtrack at the end is actually, like, prophetic. It's like, "We will let it snow in any way that we
Mm.
can."
Mhm. Yeah, we're gonna let it snow paper.
Yes.
Yeah, at first what I thought it was going to be was all of the bearer bonds that somehow, I don't know,
Oh,
but that
yeah.
doesn't make sense because I saw white and green and I was like, okay, maybe they're trying to like do bearer bonds, but then you actually look at the pieces of paper and they're blank. It's like, well, that's not that. So, okay. A Christmas miracle of fake snow.
Mhm.
That is the conclusion.
It would be neat if it was raining bearer bonds, though.
I thought so. That would
That
be
would
a
be really
nice
fun.
like cuz there's a little bit of like anti-capitalist stuff
Yes.
going
I
on
was thinking
here
about that.
too, like
Yep.
especially that very very end moment when Holly, as soon as the watch is off of her wrist, the symbol of capitalism, then Hans falls to the ground and she is safe. Like, so I really expected that the bearer bonds would be dispersed throughout the crowd.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like, F
but
it.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
real like
Especially because that watch is the one
anti-capitalism.
that she earned because of her big
Hmm.
promo.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's poetic.
but that's all right. We got a little anti-capitalism, not as far as we could have gone, but that's okay.
I mean, that's one of our primary benefits of working in an office is the free printing. Let's be real.
That's true. Cause
That's one of the
who
things that they offer. Like, I know they're paying us like a living wage too, which is really good, but also like the free printing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow.
Who has a home printer anymore?
Not I.
Yeah, you have to go into the office if you need to print anything.
Yeah.
So,
Like shipping labels for your returns.
yeah.
It's hard stuff. Where are you going to go? I'm not paying like, I remember printing at UPS once and it was like 40 cents. And I was like, this is 40 cents too expensive. Oh no. In principle, like, I am returning this item, but I'm now paying money to print a piece of paper so I can just even
Mm, mhm.
it's
Yeah.
like I reject this.
Okay, so it's a
Company benefits
yeah. This is
raining from the
showing
sky.
you even though Christmas work parties may invite you into a dangerous situation, you should come back to work because look at all of this printer paper we have available.
Yes, it really is an ad from the
Yes.
the company itself. Like, don't forget to come back in the new year, okay? I know you're really well rested, you don't want to, and you've got the January scaries, but, like, come back, okay? We've
Don't
got all the
forget
paper for you.
don't forget to come back to the place where you were severely traumatized because you had a sketchy amount of bearer bonds in a hidden secret safe and you
Yeah,
were kidnapped by terrorists. But come back to work. Come
come
back.
back. Oh, so good. Yeah. And there's a lot of carpet replacement they're gonna need to do.
I
With all that
mean,
blood stain.
you have to replace the whole building at this
Yes.
point. Like honestly.
It's
There
probably not structurally sound. They, like, blew up several
no.
floors.
Yeah.
Entire floors.
Yeah, you just got to demo the whole thing and just try again. Maybe this time invest in some better security and don't have 600,000 or million or however much it was of bearer bonds in your safe. Like, let's let's do a little better next time.
Yes. Well, there was a point where John blows up, I think, like this one of the lower floors, like the second or the third floor, um, to try and stop, I think, the FBI coming in or something like that. And I remember thinking, like, this is a very structurally sound building because I thought this would be like Jenga. Like, if you blow up the entire second floor of a building, wouldn't the whole thing just come crashing down? But no, this building is
Mhm.
well structured.
Yeah.
So good job, Nakatomi.
At least there's that. They know how to build a
Know how
building.
to build a building.
They don't know how to
Yes.
do some other things that are important
Yes.
to keep the building safe, but they know how to build a building.
Structurally sound.
Yeah. Wow.
Architectural genius.
Yeah. Gotta respect it.
Okay. Any other last thoughts before we wrap up? Hit them all.
I think, yeah,
Hit
I
them all.
think we got it.
Good. I love it. I love it. Well, this was our review and discussion of Die Hard and our celebration for our 300th episode milestone. Insert air horns again here.
Woohoo!
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Movies and Us, for celebrating with us, and just for being along the journey all of these weeks and years with us together. We really appreciate you, and we hope that you are continuing to be on this journey with us as we adventure to the future. Our name, Movies and Us, sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast truly is about all of us and our shared stories, as we talked about at the beginning of this episode. So everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you tune into your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know your thoughts about Die Hard. Is it a Christmas movie? Is it not? What's your vote? Let us know. You can connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at MoviesandUsPod, or you can email us at moviesanduspod@gmail.com. We will be back next week on to our 301st episode with a good one. We're going to be reviewing Saltburn by Emerald Fennell. We hope you've had an amazing week, and we'll see you next week.